Welcome back to NASM CPT exam prep. This is chapter 15 of 20, still in the program design domain. Today's lesson is Introduction to Exercise Modalities. We'll cover choosing the right cardio and resistance equipment for the goal in front of you, plus 5 practical ways to monitor exactly how hard a client is working. Let's get into it. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to do 5 things. First, match common cardio modalities to client goals and joint or impact considerations. Second, describe the stabilization demand spectrum across resistance training modalities. Third, explain how to select equipment based on a client's OPT phase and assessment findings. Fourth, compare 5 methods for monitoring exercise intensity in real time. And fifth, define a MET and explain how it's used to describe activity demand. 5 objectives. Let's build them one at a time. Let's start with cardiorespiratory training. Treadmill, walking or running. Impact ranges low to high. Best suited for a general cardio base, though running adds impact stress worth screening for. Cycle ergometer. Very low impact. Best suited for joint pain, knee or ankle limitations, early stage deconditioning. Elliptical. Low impact. A running-like stimulus without the impact. A good bridge modality. Rowing machine. Low impact. Full body cardio with a pulling and posterior chain bias. Stair climber. Moderate impact. Lower body strength endurance overlap with cardio demand. And swimming. No impact at all. Non-weight bearing. For clients who can't tolerate any impact. Here's how the exam likes to test this. Knee pain? Reach for cycling or swimming, not running. Now let's move to resistance training. Machines. They control the movement path for the client, reducing stabilization demand. Often the safer starting point for beginners with poor movement control or for isolating a specific muscle. Free weights, barbells, dumbbells. They demand active stabilization through the whole kinetic chain. More transferable to real-world movement, but they require more skill and more coaching attention. Cables. They allow multi-directional, functional movement patterns that neither machines nor free weights can replicate as easily. Here's the key framing. This is a spectrum, not a hierarchy. Machines aren't worse than free weights. They're simply lower on the stabilization demand axis, which makes them the right tool at the right phase for the right client. Let's finish the modality list. Body weight, 0 equipment barrier, infinitely scalable through leverage and tempo changes, a strong default when equipment access is limited. Resistance bands, portable. They provide variable resistance, more tension at end range, useful for activation work and travel-friendly programming. Suspension trainers and medicine balls. Suspension trainers add stabilization demand from the unstable strap system. Medicine balls support explosive, rotational, and throwing patterns. A Phase 5, power, staple, which you covered back in Lesson 14. Here's the single most important idea in this lesson. The selection question is rarely which modality is best in the abstract. It's which matches this client's current stabilization capacity, this phase's goal, and what's actually available in the room. Here's a concrete example. A Phase 1 client with poor single leg stability probably shouldn't be handed a heavy barbell squat on day 1, regardless of how effective barbell squats are in general. Now let's check the work. How do you actually monitor intensity? Max heart rate, or MHR, estimates a ceiling heart rate, then prescribes training zones as a percentage of it. Heart rate reserve, or HRR, also factors in resting heart rate, a more individualized zone than MHR alone. The peak MET method prescribes intensity as a percentage of a client's peak metabolic equivalent capacity. Rating of perceived exertion, or RPE. The client self-rates effort on a numeric scale. Fast, equipment-free, but it relies on self-awareness. And the talk test. Full conversation means low intensity. Short phrases only means moderate to vigorous. Can't speak at all means very high intensity. In practice, most trainers layer two methods together: an objective heart rate check plus RPE, or the talk test, as an ongoing gut check between formal measurements. Let's define one important term precisely. 1 MET, metabolic equivalent. It's roughly the energy cost of sitting quietly. About 3.5 milliliters of oxygen per kilogram of body weight per minute. Let's say that again because it's worth locking in. 3.5 milliliters of oxygen per kilogram per minute. Activities are often described as multiples of this baseline. For example, a 6 MET activity burns roughly 6 times resting energy expenditure. Let's check your understanding. Question: a client has very poor single leg stability on assessment. Which resistance modality is the more conservative starting choice? Take a second and think it through. The correct answer is machine-based leg press. Here's why. Machines control the movement path and reduce stabilization demand. That makes them a safer entry point for clients with poor movement control. This connects modality selection directly back to the assessment findings you covered in Lesson 13. One more question. During the talk test, a client can only speak in short phrases and cannot hold a full conversation. What intensity zone does this suggest? Pause and think back to the talk test breakdown. The correct answer is moderate to vigorous intensity zone. Here's why. Being able to speak only in short phrases, not full sentences, is the classic marker of a moderate to vigorous intensity zone in the talk test method. Let's bring it all together. Cardio modality choice should weigh goal, impact, and joint considerations, and client adherence, not just what's free in the room. Resistance modalities exist on a spectrum of stabilization demand. Machines control the path. Free weights demand active stabilization. Modality selection should match the client's current stabilization capacity and OPT phase, not just effectiveness in the abstract. There are 5 intensity monitoring methods: MHR, HRR, peak MET, RPE, and the talk test. Each one trades precision for convenience. And 1 MET is roughly equal to resting energy expenditure, about 3.5 milliliters of oxygen per kilogram per minute. Other activities are described as multiples of it. This slide doubles as the fastest last-minute review of the whole lesson. Great work getting through Lesson 15. Up next is Lesson 16, Chronic Health Conditions and Functional Limitations. Lesson 16 covers training considerations for older adults, obesity, pregnancy, and common chronic conditions, and where a trainer's scope of practice ends. See you there!